think for many students, it's kind of the financial and the logistical stuff that is, more complicated to wade through. Do you have any recommendations in terms of what was like the right fit for you financially and the right fit for you logistically in terms of the number of hours, the commitment, kind of the logistics of the contract that you were looking for?
So actually, answer me this. How much do you guys get for living expenses a quarter? Like, what would you say that number is?
I think it's about $6,000 if you take like the full amount of loans on top of what you're paying for school.
So I'd look for something a little bit higher than that, and try to live in the same means that you lived on as a student. Like, don't be extravagant. Like, live very minimally for as long as you can so you can build from that. So I'd say try to maintain the same, because I thought, for students, we lived really well. Like, I don't know how it is now, but like even in the Bay Area, we were living well. And so if you can stay at that level, I think that's a good salary average to think about.
Yeah, I think that's a really good barometer, because then there's not like a huge switch in your lifestyle. You can basically just kind of like maintain and use a lot of the similar budgets and a lot of the similar things that you've
that. So it's easy, and you can save at that level potentially as well, because you should be getting that and a bonus on top of that for whatever you bring in. That's pretty standard. And so whatever you bring in more than that, like, start socking that away into savings as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And so, do you have a particular situation where you are going through different phases? Is there kind of like it seems like at 4 years, you're through the hiring phase, you've been fully hired. Are you in kind of a tandem phase? And is there any talk about maybe you taking over the practice sometime, or what would you recommend in terms of that?
So there was definitely, it all depends on what you want. So there was always the thought, so I was supposed to come on as a partner. Like, that was always our idea. I actually recently, this past year, backed out from that for multiple different reasons. And so I definitely feel like if you're going into that, ideally, if it works out, you should look to grow in that relationship. Like, are you going to be a partner? Are you going to buy in? Like, where can you go forward from that? Or it's going to stagnate to some degree and you're going to want to move on, which is kind of the situation where I've kind of found myself, which I might open another practice for him. I might take a step back for a little bit. Like, I haven't really decided yet, but all of a sudden, like, I don't know, things shifted for me and I decided to take a step back from that. But I definitely feel like you should go into it being like, hey, there's potential for me to grow from here if you want to. It's just like the relationship will never go anywhere if you don't have that potential for future growth within that. Like, there should be a ladder that you can climb.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it feels to me like the story I keep hearing from other students is, I want to associate for a couple of years and then open my own practice, which really doesn't give you any upward growth in that practice that you're working in. It's basically like you're using them as a mentor and then you go off and you kind of do your own thing. And I feel like that's what most students seem to think is the best scenario, but you're proposing something very different, where you're actually like becoming a partner, or perhaps like eventually buying the practice, or creating a lot of upward mobility within that particular position.
Right. And we've actually already, we're looking at creating multiple practices and kind of having a joint core group of where he's trained so many associates, of him potentially financing the people that he trains in his office into their own offices. So that's kind of the idea that we brought up here in Austin is, we've got another doc in training right now, and we're going to place him in an office in a location north of here. And so working on how to, I feel like we need to work more together and less of the lone wolf mentality. And even if you're just sharing space with somebody, like, the fact that we have practices that are only open 20 hours a week, I find ridiculous. Like, why do you have a space that's not being used for the rest of that time. So I feel like joint practices is really where we need to move towards as a profession, and how do we get there and how do we work together more. So we're trying to figure that out and wage that out. And I think I'm on the alumni board at school, and we're trying to mentor more people as well. And how do we further this, and how do we become more together than doing that whole like, hey, just go out and be on your own and do your own thing and you're off in the world. Like, let's be together. Like, let's be smarter about this. Like, dentists are doing partner practices, lawyers do it, accountants do it. Like, why aren't we doing more of that as well and share the overhead?
Yeah, right. I mean, that makes total sense to me. And I think there is kind of this feeling for a lot of people in chiropractic that there is some divisiveness, and that, you know, not everybody is willing to work together. But what a perfect way to work together, especially like, let's say you're an upper cervical doc, you could work with a full spine doc. And you know, I mean, there's just so many opportunities for collaboration and working together and growing and learning, right? And when you're in that environment with other people, there's so much that they can teach you.